Just thought I'd drop a quick video about changing the engine mounts on a Discovery 2 V8 and also the gearbox mounts if they're required to be changed. First things first, you'll see at the end of this I'll drop some videos on there, a little bit of a step by step. Main thing with this is obviously safety. Make sure before you start you got your card chocked so that just in case it doesn't move while you're underneath it. The thing that I do first after that is I spray every bolt with WD-40 I'm going to be taking off. Some of these have been on there for years, so obviously haven't been changed, and they can be pretty corroded. After that, I've got my trolley jack and my 450mm piece of wood that I use to prop underneath the sump of the vehicle. I just take up the slack on that, so it's just sitting there. Then I undo the two bottom nuts of the two engine mounts, so the driver's side and the passenger side one. Once I've done that, I lift the car up in the air using the block of wood to lift the engine. Just be very careful when you do this, because the engine, the back of the engine will hit the cowl of the where the windscreen is, or the back of the bonnet. So do it incrementally. Don't just crank it up in the air, because you're going to break something or bend something. Once you've got it up, the main problem is getting out the two top bolts for the engine mounts. Passenger side, the easiest way to do it is take the top of the airbox off, get the airline out the way between that and the fuel system, and then you can get in there with a 18mm ratchet spanner and incrementally undo the nut. And it is incrementally, you're only moving it a matter of millimeters each time. Once you've done that, that one comes out pretty easy. So you move over to the driver's side. On the driver's side, you can't use the 18mm, or my 18mm, because it was too long. Ideally, you'd want sort of a 6-inch 18mm ratchet spanner. I did think about cutting mine in half, but no, I wasn't going to do that. I'll get one in the future if I need to. What I used in its place was what I would call a brake line, or a line spanner, one that's got the gap in the end, and I used 18mm for that on the driver's side. Same thing, a little bit more painful because you couldn't ratchet, but it gave me enough space to take the top nut off. Once you've got those two top nuts off, basically you can pull the engine mounts out from the bottom. In most cases, the engine mount's probably going to fall apart. The top usually comes off them, where the metal plate joins the rubber. That's where they usually break, unless the rubber's totally stuffed. Get them out the way. Again, I do the passenger side first. So maneuver that into place. I then put the top nut on. That's the first thing I do, is put the top nut on to hold the new engine mount on the top bracket. On the top bracket, you'll see there's a guide pin as well as the nut. You have to make sure that's in the right spot. So I snug that up. I don't do it up 100%. I snug it up, and then I slowly lower the car down so that the bottom pin, or the bottom bolt, will go through the hole in the chassis. Sometimes it doesn't quite line up, and you can easily just either shove the motor over, or I just shove the motor over, or use a breaker bar to nudge it over the few mil that you need to go. Once I've done that, I put the bottom nut on the bolt. I don't tighten it up, I just put it on there so it's just sitting there, so it sits, and it won't, basically the bolt won't come back out. Go over to the driver's side, do exactly the same thing on that side. Top bolt first, slowly lower the car down again and make sure the bottom bolt goes in. The driver's side normally goes straight in, the passenger side for some reason always seems a bit icky. Drop the car back down slowly, drop it back down through the holes and then put the other bottom bolt on. I then go around and tighten everything up. So I tighten up the two bottom bolts and then I tighten up the two, make sure the two top bolts are totally tight. Once you've done those, you go over to doing the gearbox mounts. Gearbox mounts are a lot easier. Doesn't matter what sort of vehicle you've worked on in Discovery classes, the D1, the Range Rover Classic, they were both the same, and the D2 is the same. Basically, you've got a bracket held by 4 bolts onto each side of the gearbox. It's a lot easier once you've undone the 2 bottom bolts on the mounts and put your jack under and stuck your 400mm piece of wood under and lifted the jack slightly. You'll see if the mounts again have destroyed themselves or if they're okay. On my one, the passenger side one was totally stuffed, and the driver's side was okay. It was actually brand new. Somebody had put one in there. The easiest way, as I've said, is to undo the bracket. So there's 4 bolts that hold the bracket to the gearbox. Undo those 4 bolts, they're all 15mm, and the 2 bolts on the engine mounts are 15mm. Undo those 4, pull the whole bracket off. It comes off with a little exhaust shield, little metal exhaust shield. We've got one on either side. Take those off, swap over your mount, so get your new mount. Again, what I do is I put it onto the bracket. So I put the heat shield on it and then put that onto the bracket that's going to go against the side of the gearbox. Again, on this, you've got your bolt and you've got a pin that guides. So put those together, lift it back up and drop the bottom bolt from the mount through the chassis hole. Then it's really easy just to put the 4 bolts back in, put the bottom nut on the chassis and then make sure everything's tight. Driver's side is exactly the same, different size mount. You've got to be careful. They are different size mounts, so make sure you get the right ones when you do it. As I said, I took mine apart. I took the bottom bolt out and I looked at the driver's side engine mount on the gearbox and there was nothing wrong with it, so I've left it there. So I've got a spare one. Once you've got everything back down, I just go around and snug up all the bolts. And I use a breaker bar for that. I use a rattle gun just to start them up to a certain level. Obviously don't ever put the nut straight onto the bolt with the rattle gun. Make sure you start threading it first before you use the rattle gun, or you might cross thread it. Once you've done that, everything back down and take it for a little drive. I make sure that I give it a little settle first, and then I go around and make sure everything's tight still. I'll put a couple of videos on the end of here, and I'll also put a list of the tools and stuff that I use, so you'll see what I actually use to do it. It took me 3 hours, and I stopped for breakfast and had 2 cups of coffee, so it's not hard. Thank you. For all you D2 budding DIYers, if you're going to fix your engine mounts, the best tool I found for the job is this straight ratchet. I tried all these other ones, absolutely useless. Do it from the top, take your airbox out the way, or your air line, and you can get to it incrementally from the top. It's a lot easier than trying to get through the bottom, through all the axle and your steering rods, etc. For those of us that drive on the correct side of the road, so the driver's side of the car, this one is a lot harder to get off. Can't get the ratchet in there, it's too long. So the new go-to tool, believe it or not, is this little baby. Ideal it would be a very small ratchet, but I don't have one on an 18. To get to them underneath it's really easy, both sides both the same. I just use an 18 on a rattle gun. The baby rattle gun. Happy as Larry with the gearbox mount, same as the D1 and the Range Rover Classic. It's a lot easier to unbolt it actually off the gearbox and then take the whole bracket out, put it together, then stick it back in. And basically the same on the other side, it's a lot smaller mount though. So these are the bits and pieces that we used, or I used today. Floor jack, two nice pieces of wood. The long one holds up the engine on its end when you're doing the engine mounts, the shorter one does the gearbox when you're doing the gearbox mounts. Breaker bar, sometimes the nuts come off easier rather than using a rattle gun on them. The rattle gun, the good old WD, and some blue Loctite to put back on. A couple of spanners, the 18s for the front, 15s for the gearbox, and the little 18 there, like the pipe spanner, that worked really well on the driver's side of the front engine mount. And there's the nasty pieces that are all broken, and the one gearbox mount I didn't need to change because somebody put a new one on it, but well done.